This behavior is irresponsible and selfish.
That did not stop Eric Garcetti from showing up maskless to a Black Lives Matter protest. So, Democrats have been telling you, we need to lock down, everybody wear a mask, do what they say at every turn. And if you don't do what they say, you're definitely going to get COVID, and then probably you're going to die. There's only one problem. Democrats have been the most hypocritical actors throughout all of this. We're talking about the most prominent Democrats in the country, routinely violating the rules they set for everybody else, regardless of whether you think their standards are good or whether their standards are nonsense. They're not even holding by their own standards, so they just don't have the credibility. You have Chris Cuomo, right? In the media, no one has been more self-righteous about masking up than Chris Cuomo in the media. During the spring, he suggested that he wanted everybody to mask up, and there were people who were out there protesting against the lockdowns, and he said, you guys are idiots. This is about other people. How could you violate the rules? Here was Chris Cuomo then.
Those are the facts. But there's also fatigue. I've had it. Season's changing. It's getting warm. Want to get back to it. Look at these fools. Fools. I know they want to be out there. Fools. It's not about you. What about the other people? And look, I'm not going to castigate you. That's not my job. I'm not your daddy. But we have to think about this.
Okay, well then, in April 2020, he actually got COVID-19. And he proceeded to go ballistic on a biker who called him out after he engaged in unnecessary travel while he had COVID, because you're supposed to isolate in place. It was called a shelter-in-place order, not a shelter-at-your-second-house order.
I don't want some jackass, loser, fat tire biker to be able to pull over and get in my face and in my space and talk to me. I don't want to hear it. What? What the fuck?
We can now reveal that the cyclist is 65-year-old David Whelan.
I said, you're supposed to be quarantining. What are you doing out? What are you doing with all these people? I said, you're not even practicing social distancing.
Whelan says Cuomo confronted him.
He, at that point, began to come closer. Who the hell are you? What do you know about this? What do you know about the rules?
Whelan says he brought up Cuomo's brother, the governor of New York.
Why aren't you following his rules? That didn't make him happy. He was coming closer and closer and very angry. He said, you have not seen the last of me over this, and you will meet me again over this.
Did that seem like a threat to you?
It's pretty much a threat to me when a guy's furious, and yeah, that's a threat.
The hypocrisy runs deep. But, Chris Cuomo had other things to worry about, like doing groundbreaking interviews with his brother about how wonderful his brother was, while not asking him a single difficult question about his nursing home policy in New York. Okay, meanwhile, back in California, Eric Garcetti. So Eric Garcetti actually suggested and put in place a policy whereby if non-essential businesses were open during the pandemic, this is in the early months, he would shut off water and power.
We're still getting reports each day of non-essential businesses that continue to operate as normal. This behavior is irresponsible and selfish. So if you know of a shop that's failing to do as asked, give them a call and ask them to do what's required. Remind them, and if they won't, refer them. Because if we see continued non-compliance, they'll wind up facing misdemeanor charge, and DWP will step in and shut off their water and power.
That did not stop Eric Garcetti from showing up maskless to a Black Lives Matter protest, because as we know, this is the most woke virus in the history of the world. It is so woke. I mean, if you were protesting for social justice, you were fine. In fact, it was very important. We were told by public health officials racism was a public health problem that was more of a public health problem, in fact, than COVID itself. Then there was Senator Dianne Feinstein, also from California. So in July, Dianne Feinstein tried to block relief aid to states that did not have mask mandates. It was an attempt to force all of these states into mask mandates. Then it turns out that she went to the airport without a mask. So that was awkward. She was reported on Tucker Carlson's show, walking through the airport with no mask. That was exciting stuff. Also, she walked the halls of Congress without a mask before tech hearings. So that was good stuff as well. Perhaps the greatest hypocrite throughout all of this is Lori Lightfoot. So Lori Lightfoot has been calling out people for not wearing masks, and she's called out people who have not engaged in the lockdowns, but she went over to the hairstylist, and she then defended it. She said it was an essential service. She said it was very important.
I'm the public face of this city. I'm on national media, and I'm out in the public eye. And I'm I'm a person who, I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt like I needed to have a haircut. I'm not able to do that myself, and so I got a haircut.
She said, I think what people really want to talk about, we're talking about people dying here. We're talking about significant health disparities. That's what people care about. That actually caused a Democratic socialist named Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa to go after Lightfoot. Ramirez Rosa said she's under no obligation to look good on national TV. She's under no obligation to book national interviews. She is under an obligation to follow and promote social distancing in order to save lives. This is a bad example for our city, but no matter. Also, Lori Lightfoot, fully on board with going out in the middle of the pandemic, and after believing that Joe Biden won the election, shouting through a loudspeaker at people 2 feet away.
This is a great day for our country. We get to take our democracy back.
Then there's Nancy Pelosi. So Nancy Pelosi has had herself quite a pandemic. So she has suggested lockdown policies. She's done a lot of the mask shaming. But of course, she lives a high life. I mean, she's lived high on the hog here. She's stood in front of a refrigerator eating ice cream while telling people that COVID relief, well, if it got held up a little bit, was that really that big a deal? Here she was eating her $20 gelato in front of her $20,000 refrigerator, talking about how people don't really need COVID relief.
Chocolate candy.
Oh, wow.
This is something you can get through the mail.
Oh, my. Wow.
Other people in our family go for some other flavors, but chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here.
Yeah, but that wasn't the extent of Nancy Pelosi's ridiculousness. Then she was caught on tape, maskless at the hair salon. So like Lori Lightfoot, she needed that haircut, and she needed that haircut right now. Right now. Of course, this was after she had suggested that the president and VP needed to wear masks in order to set an example. And after she suggested in June that if you're going to wear a mask, it's about protecting other people. Unless you're going to the hair salon, in which case, you're basically good.
Is it time to mandate the wearing of masks across the country?
Oh, I definitely long overdue for that. And my understanding that the Centers for Disease Control has recommended the use of masks, but not required it because they don't want to offend the president. And the president should be example. Real men wear masks. Be an example to the country and wear the mask. It's not about protecting yourself. It's about protecting others.
In fact, in July, Nancy Pelosi declared that there would be a mask mandate in the House.
Members and staff will be required to wear masks at all times in the hall of the House.
And now we move to Bill de Blasio, back to New York. So Bill de Blasio has presided over a disaster area in New York and repeatedly violated his own rules. So in the middle of March, right, as the shutdowns were first hitting, de Blasio violated his own government recommendations and went to the gym in Brooklyn.
I did not for a moment think there was anything problematic. Again, I have to stay healthy so I can make the decisions for the people of the city.
In November, in the middle of the pandemic, he then went out in the streets and was celebrating Joe Biden's apparent victory.
Now there's a feeling that anything's possible, that we can heal again, that we can move forward. And look, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did something amazing. This is turning out to be a huge victory all over the country, but it's also the beginning of the healing. That's what we need in this country, this city, everywhere.
Now here's the reason all of this matters. We've been hearing that the experts are telling you X, Y, and Z. We've been telling you that the experts know best. Well, if you are going to set a very strict set of rules for people as to what they can and cannot do, you then need to abide by those same rules. You don't get to violate those rules willy-nilly because it is inconvenient for you. If you act like a rational human being and you take certain risks like visiting your married lover because you feel like she doesn't have COVID and probably you're not going to get COVID, well, that's your business. But you don't get to boss the rest of us around. I'm very much in favor of people being able to make rational risk assessments. As I've said before, socially distance, particularly around people who are elderly or vulnerable. Mask when you are close to other people, particularly if they're elderly or vulnerable. Be responsible in how you treat COVID. Right? Try to slow the spread by doing the rational thing and go to work and enjoy your life. You can do all of these things at once. All you have to do is have a little bit of faith in the public. But of course, there's so many of our public officials who have no faith in the public and they feel that the rules ought to apply only to those who are below them. They themselves no longer have to abide by the rules. So there you have it, the hypocrisy of our elite class making the rules for everybody else. Some pigs are more equal than others.